All right, so this is video number 2, and we have already heard about Acrisius and his daughter Danae and his supposed fate if she were to have a son. He locks her away, but Zeus still manages to find her and impregnate her. He impregnates her with the golden shower of divinity, which is what you see in this picture here, as we said before. And usually in class we have a couple of laughs about this whole golden shower business. And if you don't know why that would be funny, I'm not going to ruin your innocence. You can Google it. Yeah, not going to talk about that anymore. Okay, so Perseus is born in secret in this like underground chamber. In some versions, it's of the story, it's more like a tower. All right, but either way, she's locked away, and so it's not until her father happens to come around her cell, and he hears a baby's laugh, or he hears a child cry, or whatever it might be. Anyway, he discovers that his daughter has had a son. Uh-oh, prophecy could be fulfilled. So, in order to get rid of this problematic son, Acrisius places his daughter Danae and baby Perseus in a chest, and he puts them out to sea. So that's what you see in this particular picture here. If you've watched any of the Clash of the Titan movies about the story of Perseus, that's kind of where most of them kind of pick up. Especially the older 1960-something version of the movie. However, the chest floats, and they wind up washing safely ashore on the island of Seriphos. And Seriphos is where Perseus will grow up. Now, of course, that, Zeus has a hand in saving his son, is what most versions of the myth say, and so forth. But once they wash ashore, they are still locked in a chest, and so it is a man by the name of Dictys who rescues them from the chest. And Dictys will kind of serve as a surrogate father for Perseus his entire life. Now, do not confuse Dictys with the king of Seriphos, whose name is Polydectes. All right, Polydectes is the king of Seriphos, and when Perseus is grown, Polydectes decides to have a banquet and invite all the young men of the island to the banquet, but in order to attend, they have to bring a horse as a gift for the king. Now, Perseus is very poor, and so this would be a difficult task for him to do, to be able to afford a horse to bring as a gift to the king. And so he says to the king that it would be as easy for him to bring the head of the Gorgon Medusa as it would be for him to bring a horse to this banquet. Now, this isn't just a friendly invitation. This is an order, right? So all the young men have to come, and they all have to bring a horse. So King Polydectes takes Perseus seriously. Now, you might want to wonder why he would take Perseus seriously. Well, Polydectes has a huge crush. He's very much in love or lust with Perseus's mother, Danae. But Perseus is in the way because he is protecting his mother from the king. So, if Perseus goes off on this impossible task of bringing home the head of a Gorgon, then the way is clear for the king to pursue Danae, the mother. Now, when the king takes Perseus seriously, Perseus has a dilemma. He's made this kind of rash promise that he could do this, and so he goes off alone to pray on another part of the island. And while he's praying, two gods come to him, Hermes and Athena, and they assure him that he can do this, and they wind up giving him gifts that will help him out. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. But as a reminder, remember that there are certain motifs that we find in our sagas. So one of them, the rash promise or rash act of the hero. Secondly, the motif of the insuperable labor. It's not just anyone who could go off and kill a Gorgon and bring her head back. Remember, if you look at her or she looks at you, she will turn you into stone. This is not an easy task. Besides the fact that, remember, there are 3 Gorgons and only one can be killed, and that one is Medusa. Of course, the intended to be fatal quest kind of goes along there with the insuperable labors, and the motif of divine assistance, this time the aid of Hermes and Athena. Both deities are very closely associated with the myth. According to Pindar, in his account, Athena is more helpful than Hermes. So, he agrees to this task, and he sets off on his adventure. So let me get to the next page here. All right. So the first thing that Perseus has to do is he has to find out where the Gorgons live. Nobody knows. Somewhere at the edge of the world, apparently. So he must journey to the Grey, which are the Gorgon's sisters. These are the 3 sisters that were born old. They share 1 eye and 1 tooth. Yeah, now you remember them. Okay? So he goes to them, and they tell him how to find their sister and the equipment that he needs to successfully defeat her. Now, they don't do this willingly. They don't just give up their sister. He actually steals their eye and tooth from them and basically plays keep away with it and won't give those items back to them until they tell him what he wants. So that's how he gets the information. So the Grey tell them where to find the Gorgons, but also tells him to go to see the nymphs of the north. And they are the ones who will have the magical or enchanted objects that he needs in order to successfully complete his quest. So when he goes to see the nymphs of the north, he receives 4 important enchanted objects. Okay. One of them was given to him directly by Hermes, and that is the sickle of Hermes. Okay? That's very important to keep in mind for your quiz, hint, hint, because all of these things wind up becoming very much associated with Hermes, but they did not initially come from him. Okay? Hermes kind of steals these things when Perseus returns them to him to return to the nymphs of the north. Got it? Remember, Hermes is kind of tricky. So he receives this sickle from Hermes. It's going to be important to have an enchanted object to be able to cut her head off in the first place. Okay? And then from the nymphs of the north, he receives the cap of darkness, which belongs to Hades, and that allows its wearer to become invisible. He receives this magical wallet or pouch called the kibisis. This is important because he needs something to put her head in after he beheads her. Her blood is actually very acidic and poisonous in itself, and so he needs an enchanted pouch or bag to be able to carry this thing home. And the last thing that he receives are the magic sandals. This allow him to fly. And again, the cap of darkness, the kibisis, and the magic sandals he all receives from the nymphs of the north. Okay, only the sickle comes directly from Hermes. Now, as you can see here with his flying sandals, he gets to his destination pretty quickly. One of the things that's often confusing, because we see this in movies like The Clash of the Titans, is that, this idea that Perseus rides Pegasus. But remember, in mythology, nobody rides Pegasus but the hero Bellerophon, because Athena gave him the tools to do it. So he doesn't need a flying horse. He has flying sandals. Okay. Now, again, the sickle, the cap, and the sandals are regular features of Hermes, but that is only because he winds up not returning them to the nymphs of the north once Perseus is done with them, and he gives them to Hermes to return for him. Okay. Now, he journeys to find the gray. Let me see if I can get this. There we go. And in terms of locations of where the Gorgons live, they are pretty much said to live at the edge of the known world. So again, this would take him to the Holy Lands, to the Levant, and to Egypt, right, as far away where the sun sets. Okay. Now, the Gorgons' names are, of course, you have Medusa, but the other two Gorgons are named Stheno and Euryale. And remember, Medusa is the only one who is mortal, but all three sisters can turn people to stone if you look at them. So the beheading of Medusa is actually a little bit anticlimactic. If you watch the Clash of the Titans movies, either the old one or the newer one, it is much more exciting than what Perseus actually did. All right, he's got his flying shoes, he's got his helm of darkness, which gives him the power of invisibility. So he basically soundlessly flies into their lair. He's invisible. He waits for them to fall asleep. He beheads Medusa while the Gorgons are all sleeping, puts her head in a bag, and flies back out silently and invisibly. So if you remember that when Medusa is beheaded, she gives birth to her children by Poseidon, Pegasus, hence again why Perseus isn't riding Pegasus to kill Medusa. He hasn't even been born yet. Okay. Clash of the Titans, again, fantastic movie, not very accurate. All right, and of course the Chrysaor, which is again a giant. Now, when the other two sisters, Stheno and Euryale, awaken and discover that their sister has been murdered in their sleep, they cry and they grieve and remember that Athena invents the flute in order to try to mimic the beauty of the Gorgon cry as they mourn for their sister. Another association with music in this particular myth is the Hippocrene, which happens right here. Okay, the Hippocrene is a fountain on the top of Mount Helicon, which is kind of the home of the heavenly muses. The goddesses of the arts, and as Pegasus is flying across the the mountain on his birthday, his foot strikes the mountain, and where his foot strikes, that's where a fountain comes out, and it is at that fountain that the muses make their home. So he's associated with the arts and music because of the flute and the Hippocrene. Okay, so the adventure doesn't stop there because we have plenty of adventures on the way back to Seriphos with the Gorgon's head. So kind of the whole journey there and killing of Medusa is the easier part of the adventure. Remember, he's got winged shoes and a helmet that gives him the powers of invisibility. It's a little bit unfair, I have to say. It's kind of disappointing, Perseus. We want some more action. So, we're going to get some more action here in a bit. Perseus is going to get quite a bit of use out of the head of Medusa as a weapon, as you'll see here in a bit. So, tune into the third video to get the adventure back part of the story.